VRYN had killed thousands across the stars. Kings, warlords, diplomats, none of them mattered. What mattered was the clean execution, the precision, the undeniable finality of death. That was his craft. That was his purpose. But as he watched Marcus Hale take a plasma round straight to the chest and stumble, not fall, not die, just stumble, a foreign sensation crept through his mind. For the first time in his career, VRYN felt fear. Assassin VRYN of the Calthrin Guild was a master of death. The guild had existed for centuries, a silent force operating in the shadows of galactic politics. When rulers needed rivals removed, corporations needed competitors silenced, or governments required clean solutions, they called upon the Calthrins. They were meticulous, surgical, efficient. Failure was unheard of. VRYN had never failed. As he perched on the balcony of a towering skyscraper on Eldoria Prime, the shimmering capital world of the interstellar Concord, he checked his weapon once more. A modified plasma executioner Mk7, designed to vaporize organic tissue instantly upon impact. A direct hit to the target's chest or head would ensure zero survivability. His target, Ambassador Marcus Hale, human envoy to the Concord's High Council. The contract had been simple. The ambassador had made enemies, dangerous ones. A rival faction wanted him removed before an upcoming vote that could shift power in the Concord. It wasn't VRYN's concern why. His only concern was execution. Through the enhanced optics of his scope, he focused on Hale, who stood on the embassy balcony speaking with aides. His posture was relaxed, unaware. A perfect mark. The wind was steady, the shot clear. VRYN exhaled slowly, aligning the plasma rifle's reticle with the human's chest. One breath. One trigger pull. One kill. He fired. And then the impossible happened. The plasma bolt should have torn through Hale's chest, reducing flesh and bone to carbonized dust. A clean kill. Instead, the human staggered backward as if merely shoved. His eyes widened in confusion, his hand touching his chest where the plasma had struck. His suit was scorched, fabric burned away, but his body was intact. Intact. VRYN's 3 hearts pounded in his chest. His mandibles twitched involuntarily. He had seen beings survive lesser injuries, protected by energy shields, armor, or defensive augmentations. But this was different. Hale had been hit directly. His vitals should have ceased instantly. But there he stood, very much alive. Hale turned abruptly, eyes scanning the skyline. VRYN cursed and disengaged. The moment a target knew they were being hunted, the mission had already become 10 times harder. He activated his stealth field, slinking into the shadows of the high-rise rooftop. Yet something gnawed at him, a sensation he had never encountered in his entire career. Doubt. Humans were not special. They were resilient, sure, but not immune. So how? VRYN's mind raced as he initiated his extraction protocol. This had to be a mistake. An anomaly. A malfunction. And yet, something in the back of his mind whispered otherwise. VRYN's guild had protocols for failure, not that he had ever needed them. He activated his cloak generator, blending seamlessly into the night. Eldoria Prime was a sprawling metropolis filled with billions of sentients. Good for hiding. Bad for getting out unnoticed. Security drones swarmed the area, their sensors scanning for anomalies. The Concord took assassination attempts very seriously, especially against one of their ranking officials. Hale's status had just elevated from diplomat to high-priority protected target. VRYN ducked into an alleyway, using his neural uplink to activate a concealed exfiltration beacon. A dropship would arrive in 10 minutes, an eternity in his line of work. But VRYN couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. His mind raced with possibilities. Had humans developed an unknown technology? Was Hale part of some classified military project? Had the plasma round misfired? None of those explanations satisfied him. A direct plasma shot to an unarmored target was fatal. Always. And yet, Hale still lived. VRYN made it back to his safe house, deep in the underbelly of the city. He immediately contacted his guild handler, Jekries. Jekries' holographic form flickered to life, his compound eyes narrowing. "You're calling me so soon, Vir? I assume the contract is completed?" VRYN hesitated. He never hesitated. "There's a problem?" Jekries leaned forward. "Explain." VRYN relayed the events exactly as they had occurred. As he spoke, Jekries' mandibles twitched, a rare sign of unease. When VRYN finished, the handler's response was not what he expected. "Forget the contract." VRYN stiffened. "What?" Jekries' gaze darkened. I said, forget it. Do not pursue the human further. Withdraw. Return to the guild immediately. VRNN had served the guild for over 20 years. He had never been ordered to abandon a mission. You knew. VRNN's voice was cold. You knew this would happen. Jekries hesitated, a fraction of a second, but enough. You sent me knowing I would fail. A tense silence stretched between them. Come back, VRNN, Jekries finally said. This is bigger than you. You don't want to dig into this. But VRYNN was already past that. VRYNN disconnects the call. His handler, his own guild, knew humans were immune to assassination. They had been covering it up. But why? He would find out. Even if it killed him. VRYNN had spent years moving through the galaxy's shadows, a silent executioner whose name was never spoken aloud. Now he was the one being hunted. The moment Jekries had whispered the warning through the comms, this is bigger than you. Get out. Now. VRYNN knew he had just signed his own death warrant. The guild never tolerated failure. But this wasn't just about a failed kill. This was about a truth buried so deep, the guild was willing to kill its own to keep it hidden. VRYNN didn't know why humans were immune to assassination. But he was going to find out. And if the guild wanted him dead, they'd have to work for it. Tarsus V was a sprawling underworld station orbiting a dying star. A place where criminals, bounty hunters and fugitives disappeared. VRYNN had chosen it as his hiding spot because no one asked questions here. But that was before the assassins came. The air in the dimly lit alley smelled of rust and ozone. The neon signs overhead flickered, their alien scripts glowing dull red in the rain. VRYNN moved quickly, every muscle tensed. He could feel them watching him. Calthran assassins were ghosts trained to blend with the darkness. VRYNN had been one of them. And that meant he knew exactly how they would move. He turned a corner just as a plasma round sizzled past his head, melting the metal wall where his skull had been a moment earlier. Too close. VRYNN rolled into cover, his mind racing. They weren't just trying to kill him. They were making sure he had no chance to escape. Which meant he needed to do the impossible. He had to break into the guild's own classified archives and find the truth for himself. Because if humans were impossible to kill and the guild had been covering it up, then that meant the guild knew something no one else did. And VRYNN was going to rip that secret out of their hands. The Vault of Silence was the most secure database in the guild's network. A hidden archive containing centuries of assassination records. Getting inside was considered impossible. VRYNN smirked. Then it's a good thing I specialize in impossible. He slipped into the lower levels of Tarsus V, avoiding security patrols. The data vault was located deep beneath the main station, protected by layers of biometric scans, AI firewalls and kill drones. But the guild had never expected to be infiltrated by one of their own. VRYNN disabled the outer security system with a stolen guild access code. Inside, the vault was cold and silent, illuminated only by the pulsing glow of floating data interfaces. He had minutes before they noticed the breach. VRYNN searched through decades of assassination reports, scanning for anything related to humans. And then he found it. A file labeled The Human Problem. The moment he opened it, his 3 hearts nearly stopped. Hundreds of failed assassination attempts. Every method, ***, poisons, plasma, kinetic weapons, neural disruptors, ***, none of them worked. Some humans survived headshots. Others recovered from lethal poisons as if they had merely been sick for a day. Some even moved before an attack happened, sensing the danger before it struck. But the most disturbing part? The guild never stopped trying. Even after centuries of failure, they had kept sending assassins. Because they weren't trying to kill humans anymore. They were studying them. VRYNN's mandibles clenched as he scrolled through the next set of files. The guild's highest-ranking leaders had been working with the Galactic Concord. The same government that had invited humans to join their council had also been secretly working on a way to eradicate them. VRYNN exhaled slowly. This is bigger than I thought. The human immune response to assassination wasn't an accident. It was evolution. Something about humanity had changed. And the Concord was terrified of what they were becoming. That's why they had kept sending assassins. Not to kill them, but to find a way to control them before it was too late. And now, after centuries of failed attempts, the Guild and the Concord had finally found their answer. Project Purge. A biological weapon designed to disable humanity's unique resistance. It was ready to deploy. And the first wave was already en route to Earth's outer colonies. VRYNN shut the file. If he didn't stop this, humanity would finally be vulnerable. And once they were vulnerable, they would be wiped out. Vironen barely had time to react before the alarm screamed through the vault. A synthetic voice echoed, "Unauthorized data access detected. Security lockdown initiated." Vironen moved. Kill drones emerged from the walls, their glowing red eyes scanning for targets. Vironen ducked behind a console as a plasma blast melted through a nearby terminal. He needed to get out. He sprinted through the corridors, dodging automatic turrets and leaping over security barriers. But as he reached the exit, his escape was cut off. A figure stood waiting for him in the doorway. Grandmaster Calvek. Vironen froze. Calvek was a legend. The deadliest assassin in the guild's history. And he wasn't here to talk. "You should not have looked, Vironen." Vironen's grip tightened on his plasma dagger. "Then you shouldn't have lied to me." Calvek sighed. "You don't understand. Humans are a threat to everything we know. If we let them evolve unchecked, they will surpass us all." Vironen's mandibles twitched. "So you decided genocide was the answer?" Calvek's expression hardened. "It is the only way." Vironen lunged. The fight was instantaneous, brutal, and precise, a deadly clash between two master assassins. Calvek was stronger, but Vironen was faster. He dodged a lethal strike and drove his dagger into Calvek's side. The Grandmaster staggered, eyes wide. "You learned from them." Vironen exhaled. "Yes. And that's why you lost." Calvek collapsed. The guild had just lost its most feared leader. But the war wasn't over. Vironen escaped into the lower levels of Tarsus V, his mind racing. He had the data. He knew the plan. But stopping it would take more than just one man. He activated his comms. "Hale, are you there?" Pause. Then Marcus Hale's voice came through. "I'm listening." Vironen took a breath. "The guild and the Concord are planning something worse than assassination. They've created a virus. It neutralizes whatever makes humans different." Hale's voice was cold. "How long do we have?" Vironen clenched his fists. "They've already launched the first wave." Silence. Then Hale's voice, sharper than before. "Then we don't stop them in the shadows anymore. We end this war. Now." Vironen nodded. For the first time in his life he wasn't an assassin anymore. He was fighting for something bigger. And if the guild and the Concord wanted a war, they just got one. Vironen had always been a ghost, unseen, unheard, and deadly. But now he was a hunted man. The moment his stolen freighter slipped past the orbital defenses of Earth, alarms were already lighting up across human security networks. He could feel it. They knew he was coming. Humans always knew. He had seen it with Marcus Hale, the man who should be dead but wasn't. He had seen it with Calvek, the Grandmaster of the Calthran Guild, who had spoken of humanity's unnatural ability to survive. And now, as his ship entered the Sol system, he was about to get his answers. Because if what the Guild feared was true, then humanity wasn't just impossible to assassinate. They were evolving into something even deadlier. Vironen had studied Earth before. Every assassin did. It was classified as a Category 7 death world, one of the most hostile inhabited planets in the known galaxy. It had toxic atmospheres, extreme weather, superpredators, and a history of unrelenting warfare. But what made it worse? The humans themselves. They weren't just survivors. They were adapters. Their technology advanced at a rate far beyond projections. Their military strategies were unpredictable. And, most disturbingly, they had an instinct for danger that defied logic. He had to move carefully. The moment his ship touched down in a black market docking bay in New Berlin, he activated his disguise matrix. To any observer he would appear as a Zorthan trader, an irrelevant background figure in the bustling cityscape. But deep inside he felt something off. A tension in the air. A pressure like being watched. It wasn't the guild. It was them. Marcus Hale was no ordinary diplomat. Vironen had spent hours sifting through stolen data on his way to Earth. Hale had been in the Terran Special Forces before transitioning to politics. That explained his instincts, his reflexes, but not his survival. He had been the target of 5 assassination attempts in the past, and he had survived all of them. Vironen knew that meeting Hale openly was suicide. The Terran security forces would burn him down before he even got close. So he set a trap. He hijacked a private comms relay and transmitted a single message. "We need to talk." "You know why?" The response came immediately. "You have no idea what you're getting into. Meet me at Docking Bay 47. Come alone." Vironen exhaled. Hale wasn't afraid. He was ready. Docking Bay 47 was empty. No security. No guards. Just Hale, standing with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Vryn stepped out cautiously, scanning for traps, snipers, drones. Nothing. Hale smiled slightly. Still expecting an ambush? Vryn kept his distance. Most people would be afraid after an assassination attempt. Hale shrugged. Most people aren't me. Something about him unsettled Vryn. He had faced warlords who commanded fleets, emperors who wielded planet-breaking weapons, and soldiers enhanced with cybernetic augments. And yet, this unarmed human had him on edge. Vryn decided to be direct. Why are you still alive? Hale exhaled, his gaze sharp. Because you never had a chance of killing me? Vryn's claws tightened. Explain? Hale took a step forward. No assassin has ever killed a human, have they? Vryn hesitated. No. Hale nodded. And do you know why? Vryn shook his head. I intend to find out. Hale's next words sent a chill through him. It's not just biology, Vryn. It's something much, much worse. Hale led Vryn into a hidden Terran research facility, deep beneath the city. The walls were lined with holographic displays showing data files, failed assassination attempts, and footage from across the galaxy. For the past century, Hale said, assassins from dozens of species have tried to kill us. None have succeeded. Vryn studied the files. The evidence was overwhelming. Weapons that should kill instantly, failing. Poisons that should be lethal, neutralized. Assassins who never failed, failing repeatedly. Hale turned to him. The question isn't why we survive. It's why you even try. Vryn frowned. What do you mean? Hale tapped a display. If you knew assassination didn't work, why keep sending assassins? Vryn's breath caught. The guild wouldn't. Hale raised an eyebrow. Wouldn't what? Keep trying the same thing over and over, despite failure? Doesn't that sound insane to you? Vryn's blood ran cold. It was insane. The guild never wasted resources. If they had known for decades that humans were impossible to assassinate, why did they keep trying? Hale studied him. You're starting to understand, aren't you? Vryn exhaled. They were never trying to kill you? Hale nodded. Exactly. Vryn's mind raced. The guild, the most efficient, ruthless organization in the galaxy, had never adapted their methods. Because the assassination attempts weren't failures. They were tests. Vryn's stomach churned. They were gathering data. Hale's expression darkened. And now they think they know enough. Vryn's voice was barely a whisper. For what? Hale pulled up a final data file locked behind layers of security. Project Purge. They're not trying to kill us, Vryn. They're trying to find a way to wipe us out completely. Vryn had spent his entire life taking orders, eliminating targets without question. But now he was faced with an impossible truth. The guild was planning something worse than assassination. They were planning genocide. Hale looked at him. You have a choice, Vryn. Walk away and the guild might let you live. Stay and you fight against everything you've ever known. Vryn closed his eyes. He had been raised to believe in the guild. To believe in its purpose, its methods, its traditions. But now he knew the truth. The guild wasn't a force of order. It was a fearful relic, desperate to stop something it couldn't control. He opened his eyes. What do we do? Hale smiled grimly. We stop them before they make their move. Vryn nodded. For the first time in his life he wasn't an assassin anymore. He was a man with a mission. And if the guild thought humans were impossible to kill before, they had no idea what was coming. Vryn had spent his entire life in the shadows. A ghost. A silent executioner. Now for the first time he was stepping into the light. And in that light he saw the truth. The Calthran Guild wasn't trying to assassinate humanity anymore. They were preparing to eradicate it. As the stolen intelligence file loaded on the screen in front of him, he felt something deep and unfamiliar settle in his chest. Something he had never felt before. Rage. The guild had lied to him. Manipulated him. Used him. And now they were planning genocide. Marcus Hale leaned forward, his expression grim. They think they've figured out how to kill us, Vryn. Vryn's claws curled into fists. Then we stop them before they try. Because if the guild believed they could destroy humanity, they had severely underestimated what they were dealing with. Hale pulled up the classified guild directive, a document labeled Project Purge. It outlined a multi-phase assault designed to wipe out humanity without direct combat. The guild knew that traditional assassination methods didn't work, so they had shifted tactics. 1. Biological warfare, a tailor-made nanite virus, engineered to disrupt human physiology at a cellular level. Unlike conventional poisons, this wasn't meant to kill instantly. It would slowly weaken human resilience over generations, making them vulnerable to the very weapons they once resisted. 2. Planetary sabotage, a covert orbital strike designed to appear as an accident, an asteroid pushed slightly off course, a solar flare amplified by artificial means. Something subtle enough that the humans wouldn't realize they were under attack until it was too late. 3. Political destabilization, the Guild had infiltrated key human governments, turning allies against each other. If humans could be made to fight themselves, they wouldn't notice an external force working in the shadows. It wasn't just about killing humans. It was about making them vulnerable first. VRNN's stomach twisted. This was why they had kept sending assassins. They weren't trying to kill humans. They were collecting data on how to break them. And now they thought they had found the answer. Hale's voice was like steel. We have less than 3 weeks before they deploy the virus. VRNN exhaled slowly. Then we have 2 weeks to destroy them. Fighting the Guild wasn't like fighting an army. There would be no open battlefield, no fleets in space. The Guild operated in silence, moving unseen, striking from the dark, which meant the only way to win was to become even deadlier in the dark than they were. Hale had already begun mobilizing. Human Special Operations Forces were assembling. They were trained for covert war, stealth, sabotage, precision strikes. But VRNN knew it wouldn't be enough. The Guild's assassins had never lost a war in the shadows. If they were going to take down the Guild, they needed someone who understood how it thought. And there was only one person who fit that description. VRYNN. Their first objective was clear. They had to eliminate the Guild's command center before Project Purge could begin. The target, a deep space station known as Black Hole Prime, a secret Guild headquarters hidden within the debris fields of a long-dead system. It was where the virus was being developed, where the Guild's high-ranking operatives were planning humanity's destruction. And if they could destroy it before the plan launched, the war might be over before it even started. Hale turned to VRYNN. Can you get us in? VRYNN's mandibles clicked. No. But I can get myself in. Hale frowned. You're going alone? VRYNN nodded. I used to be one of them. I know how they think. If I bring a team, we'll never make it past security. But if I go alone? Hale hesitated. And if they turn you? VRYNN's eyes darkened. Then kill me before I get the chance to finish the job. The Guild hadn't changed their security protocols. That was their first mistake. VRYNN knew every hidden access point, every blind spot in their surveillance. He had once used them to hunt his targets. Now he used them to slip inside. Black Hole Prime was a fortress of darkness, a station floating in the void, its walls lined with black market technology, automated defenses, and assassins who had never known failure. As he moved through the corridors, he listened to their conversations. They spoke with confidence. They believed Project Purge would work. That was their second mistake. VRYNN reached the data servers. He had one objective: steal the virus blueprints and erase every trace of Project Purge. But as he hacked into the system, he found something far worse. The virus wasn't just being developed here. It had already been deployed. VRYNN's breath caught. The Guild wasn't waiting 3 weeks. The first wave of the virus had already been sent to Earth's colonies. And the mastermind behind it wasn't the Grandmasters of the Guild. It was someone else. A name flashed across the screen. Directive approved by Supreme Overseer Nkrell of the Galactic Concord. VRYNN's world tilted. The Concord, the very organization that humanity was a part of, was backing the Guild's extermination plan. This wasn't just an assassination plot. It was a galactic conspiracy. And if they didn't stop it now, humanity wasn't just fighting the Guild. They were fighting the entire Concord. VRYNN didn't hesitate. He wiped the virus files, shutting down Project Purge before the second phase could launch. Then he set explosives along the station's reactors. If the Concord wanted war, they were about to get one. As he planted the last charge, alarms blared. He had been discovered. The assassins swarmed in, their weapons ready. VRYNN turned, exhaling slowly. Once he had fought for the Guild. Now he would end it. The first assassin lunged. VRYNN moved faster. The fight was over in seconds. As the last enemy fell, VRYNN activated his comms. Hell, it's bigger than we thought. The Concord is involved. Pause. Then. Get out of there. Now. VRYNN sprinted toward the escape pods. Behind him, Black Hole Prime detonated. As he watched the station collapse in flames, he knew. This was only the beginning. The real war had just begun. And now the assassins weren't just coming for humanity. They were coming for him too. VRYN watched Black Hole Prime burn. The once impenetrable stronghold of the Caltherin Guild, a station filled with assassins who had thought themselves untouchable, was now a collapsing inferno drifting through space. But even as the flames consumed the station, VRYN knew something worse was coming. The assassins had never been the true enemy. The Galactic Concord, the very institution that claimed to uphold peace, was behind Project Perch. They weren't just supporting the Guild's attempts to eradicate humanity. They were the ones orchestrating it. And now they knew someone had interfered. They would be coming. Not just for him, but for all of Earth. And VRYN was running out of time. As his stolen escape pod hurtled through space, VRYN connected to Hale's encrypted frequency. The line clicked open. "Tell me you got it done." VRYN exhaled. "Black Hole Prime is gone. Project Purge is dead." A brief silence. Then Hale spoke. "Not dead, VRYN. Just delayed." VRYN frowned. "Explain?" Hale's voice was grim. "You stopped the Guild. But the Concord doesn't need them anymore. They've already begun their real attack." A holographic projection flickered to life on the pod's console. It was a star map centered on the Terran colonies. Red warning markers flared across multiple sectors. Massive energy fluctuations. Strange biological readings. Entire settlements going dark. The virus had already been deployed. VRYN's mandibles tightened. "How many colonies?" Hale's response was quiet. 16. 16 worlds. 16 human colonies. Already dying. VRYN had thought he had won. Instead, he had only delayed the inevitable. By the time VRYN's pod reached Earth, everything had changed. The orbital defense grid was fully activated. Human battle fleets had been mobilized. A war that had lurked in the shadows was now preparing to explode into the open. As soon as he landed at the Terran Security Command Center, Hale was waiting for him. And he wasn't alone. High-ranking officers stood at his side. Leaders from the Terran Defense Forces, the Interstellar Intelligence Bureau, the Outer Rim colonies, the War Councils of Earth. And all of them were looking at VRYN. Not as an assassin, but as the only man who could tell them what was coming. Hale wasted no time. "Tell them what you told me." VRYN stepped forward. "The Concord isn't just trying to kill you. They're trying to wipe out humanity entirely. They believe humans are evolving into something unpredictable. And that terrifies them." A murmur ran through the room. An older general, his face lined with battle scars, grunted. "So they fear us?" VRYN nodded. "And they should." The meeting lasted 6 hours. By the time it ended, humanity was preparing for war. But war against the Concord meant war against an empire that spanned thousands of systems. They needed an edge. And VRYN knew exactly where to find it. Hale met him in a secured hangar after the briefing. "You're leaving?" VRYN nodded. "We need allies. And I know exactly where to find them." Hale crossed his arms. "The Guild?" VRYN exhaled. "Not the Guild. The defectors." There had been others like him. Assassins who had realized the truth, who had abandoned the Guild long before him. They were scattered, hiding across the galaxy. But if VRYN could bring them together, they might just have a chance. Hale studied him. "Do you trust them?" VRYN's response was cold. "No. But I know they hate the Concord more than they hate me." Hale sighed. "Then we better move fast. The Concord fleet is mobilizing. We have days, not weeks." VRYN stepped onto the ship. "Then let's make them count." VRYN's first stop was Rigert 7, a lawless moon on the edge of Concord space. It was a place where assassins who had nowhere else to go ended up. And VRYN knew exactly who he was looking for. A legend. A ghost. The one assassin even the Guild had feared. Zyra Ventel. Finding Zyra wasn't easy. The former Grandmaster had gone into hiding years ago. But VRYN had one advantage. He had the one thing Zyra wanted most. Revenge. When he finally found Zyra, the old assassin was sitting in a darkened cantina, his fingers tapping against a blade. VRYN sat down across from him. "The Concord is planning to erase humanity." Zyra didn't react. VRYN leaned forward. "And when they're done with the humans, do you really think they'll stop there?" That got a reaction. Zyra's eyes narrowed. VRYN didn't stop. "They'll come for us next. The assassins. The ones who have no place in their perfect galaxy." A long silence. Then Zyra smiled. "Then let's make sure they regret ever trying." VRYN returned to Earth with 30 of the deadliest assassins in the galaxy. They weren't soldiers. They weren't fleets. They were shadows. And now, those shadows were about to turn against their masters. The final battle was coming. And this time the assassins weren't taking contracts. They were delivering vengeance. The assassins had spent centuries hunting from the shadows, unseen and unstoppable. But now the shadows had turned against their masters. Virwanen stood on the bridge of a stolen Concorde frigate, staring at the incoming enemy fleet. Ships stretched across the void, their sleek hulls gleaming under the light of Sol. The war was here. But it wasn't just Earth's war anymore. It was his. The Calthran Guild had trained him to be a weapon. To be invisible. Now, for the first time in his life, Virwanen wanted to be seen. He activated the comms, his voice cold. We end this today. Because the assassins had tried to kill humanity. And they had failed. Now humanity was coming for them. The Concorde had committed to genocide. Their fleet, hundreds of warships, was advancing toward Earth, prepared to wipe out a species they saw as a threat. The virus had already begun spreading through the outer colonies. Millions were infected. And now the final strike was coming. But what the Concorde hadn't expected was that the Calthran assassins weren't loyal anymore. Virwanen's forces, 30 of the deadliest assassins in the galaxy, were already inside the enemy fleet. They had infiltrated the ships, hiding among the Concorde's elite forces. As the battle began, the assassins struck from within. Admirals were found dead at their command stations. Weapon systems failed as silent saboteurs took out entire power grids. Entire ships turned against each other as assassins took control from the inside. The war had started before the first shot was even fired. And it was already turning against the Concorde. The sky over Earth erupted in fire. Human warships surged forward, their weapons tearing into the Concorde fleet. Fighters swarmed between the massive dreadnoughts, weaving through explosions and debris. Hale stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship, commanding the defense. Virwanen's voice crackled over the comms. We're inside their fleet. They won't last long. Hale grinned. Good. Because neither will we. The Concorde wasn't retreating. They were committed. Every ship they had, every weapon, every soldier. This was their last gamble. And if they lost here, the Concorde would fall. The Calthran Guild was dying. The assassins, once feared across the galaxy, were being hunted down. And at the heart of it all, the final Grandmaster of the Guild, Zyrek Talvor, stood on the burning bridge of his flagship. Virwanen stepped forward, plasma dagger in hand. Zyrek bared his fangs. You betrayed us. Virwanen's voice was quiet. No. You betrayed me first. Zyrek lunged. The fight was brutal. Zyrek was older, stronger. His strikes were precise, calculated. But Virwanen had spent his life adapting. And he had learned from humans. He felt Zyrek's attack before it came. A flicker of movement, a shift in stance, he saw it. He moved before Zyrek could strike. And with one swift motion he buried his blade into Zyrek's throat. The Grandmaster staggered, choking on his own blood. Virwanen watched him fall. The guild was finished. With the assassins turning against them, the Concorde was breaking. Admirals panicked. Their chain of command was shattered. And that's when Earth struck back. Hale's voice boomed across the fleet. Push them back. Humanity had fought wars before. They had never lost. This time they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to win. The final battle lasted 3 hours. By the time it ended, half the Concorde fleet was gone. The rest? In full retreat. Virwanen stood on the bridge of a Concorde warship, watching the survivors flee. They had lost. Earth had won. Hale's voice came through the comms. We did it. Virwanen exhaled. Not yet. The war wasn't over. But the assassins were dead. And humanity was finally free. Final scene. The shadows disappear. Weeks later, Virwanen stood on Earth. For the first time he wasn't running. Hale walked up beside him. What now? Virwanen watched the sky. We rebuild. We prepare. Hale nodded. And the Concorde? Virwanen smiled darkly. They tried to wipe out humanity. Now humanity will decide their fate. The age of assassins was over. Now the age of humanity had begun. Final line. They came for us. Now we're coming for them. Epilogue. The new power. The galaxy had changed forever. Humanity was no longer the hunted. They were the hunters. And the shadows no longer belonged to the assassins. They belonged to the ones who had survived. Because in the end there was only one truth. You cannot kill what refuses to die. And humans? They never die easy.